Butler plays. They're 10-1 overall when Jimmy Butler plays. And as you just heard, Kevin Dana, who's filling in for the voice of the Dubs, Tim Roy, tonight down or over in Brooklyn. The Warriors alone in 6th place in the Western Conference. Welcome into Warriors Wrap-Up here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Grandy with you. It was an interesting basketball game. Before you could even settle down on your couch with your dinner or with a snack, with chips, whatever it was an early game, so probably a little early for dinner when this game was tipping off. Before you could even settle, the Warriors were down 22 points, 27-5, and then the Warriors, they come roaring back. They lead by as many as 10 late in this basketball game. I know the final score was 121-119, a 2-point margin of victory. It wasn't really that close down the stretch, although they did kind of put the fear of God in you in the last couple of seconds with some turnovers that kept the game officially alive, but ultimately the Warriors win, and it wasn't that nerve-wracking down the stretch. Final score again, 121-119. The Warriors now 35-28. And I know tonight's opponent, the Brooklyn Nets, they're probably more interested in losing basketball games than winning. But the way in which this one happened tonight, encouraging for the Golden State Warriors. They win again, 121-119. They overcome a 22-point first-quarter deficit, and they win this basketball game really on the strength of their others. And I know Steph had an awesome game. He scored 40 points tonight. He made 7 threes. He is having an insanely amazing stretch. Since Jimmy Butler was acquired, he's playing at an MVP level. I'll run through those numbers in a little bit here on Warriors Wrap-Up. This 5-game road trip, he has been absolutely phenomenal. I'll give you all the numbers. I'll give you a sneak peek, by the way. Stephen Curry, 40 points tonight. It's his 70th career 40-point game, which ties him with Kareem and Rick Barry. Ties him with 2 Hall of Famers, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Rick Barry, for the 10th most 40-point games in NBA history. Tonight was his 70th career 40-point game. He's had multiple of those on this road trip. Of course, Orlando to begin the trip, where he scored 56 points, 40 points tonight. The Warriors win there. But if you can believe it, despite Steph scoring 40 points in this game tonight, the Warriors were outscored by 16 points when Steph was on the floor. Warriors outscored by 16 when Steph was on the floor, but when Steph was off the floor, they outscore the Brooklyn Nets by 18, 37-19 when Steph was off the court. The Warriors win this on the strength of the non-Steph minutes, which, considering what this road trip was before tonight, really, really encouraging. And I think tonight, the first real quote-unquote Jimmy Butler game, that was tonight. Jimmy Butler was amazing in this basketball game, and I think he kind of has this innate sense and this innate ability to know when his team really needs him to turn on the scoring numbers, because he's always going to have a positive impact on a basketball team. He's going to play solid defense. He's one of the best help defenders in basketball still, even at this stage of his career, and he's going to make the right decision with the ball in his hands. He's going to turn the ball over rarely, if ever. He's going to drive and attract defenders and drop it off and make the right pass. He is going to help the Warriors get into sets. He's going to help the Warriors get to the free throw line, which, by the way, today, a big factor in this win. The Warriors made 29 of their 32 free throws. They were plus 13 on the free throw department tonight in terms of makes. They made 29. The Nets made 16. A game in which you win by 2, you're plus 13 in free throws. I mean, that's the difference of the ball game right there. Jimmy Butler's always going to have a positive impact. He doesn't always necessarily, though, look to score or feel the need to score. Tonight, he had to score. The Warriors were down 22 points early in this basketball game. They trailed by 20 after the first quarter when Steph played all but 3 seconds of that first quarter. So what does that mean? That means you're going into the second quarter without Stephen Curry, down by 20. If a Jimmy Butler-led second unit there to begin the second quarter struggles, and also, by the way, before I even continue, a unit without Steph, also without Pajemski, who left this game less than a minute in because his back tightened up on him. And by the way, Steve Kerr saying post-game, just tightened up, nothing serious, doesn't seem to be a big deal. He'll officially be day-to-day as the Warriors board a plane tomorrow morning to fly back out here to get ready for the Detroit Pistons on Saturday, which is the beginning of a 7-game homestand. But down 20 after Steph plays the entire first quarter. You're without Pajemski as well. Hey, Jimmy Butler, carry the load and lead us back in this basketball game. And how does Jimmy Butler respond? He scores 25 points. He goes 7 of 13 from the field. He makes the only 3 that he attempts, which, by the way, gave the Warriors their first lead of the game in the third quarter. And he was 10 for 10 from the free throw line. Also 6 assists, only 1 turnover, 3 steals. This was the first vintage Jimmy Butler game we've had since he donned a Warriors uniform, and man, did they need it. Again, you got the 40 from Steph, and that's phenomenal. Steph has been awesome, and we're going to spend a lot of Warriors wrap-up here singing his praises. But this was a Jimmy Butler game. The Warriors lose this game tonight probably by 20, if not more, without Jimmy Butler. 25 points, 10 of 10 from the free throw line, 6 assists, and 3 steals. He was darn near perfect in this basketball game tonight. And welcome into Warriors Wrap-Up, everybody. Mark Grandy with you on 95.7 The Game. This is a show for you guys, so give me a call, shoot me a text, 888-957-9570. That's the number to call. It is also our text line, and I've got our YouTube chat up, as always, youtube.com/957 The Game. Everything we do there on YouTube and on Twitch, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. I see you, Giants for Life. I see you, Pierce. I see you, Jimbo. A couple of other names that I can't pronounce. Either I'm not sure of, or I can't say that word on the radio, but just know I see all of you out there, and I appreciate the interaction on our YouTube chat, as always. Again, that is youtube.com/957 The Game. But I also got my eyes on our text line, 888-957-9570. You can also give us a call at that same number. Again, 888-957-9570. Again, this was the Jimmy Butler game. 25 points in a game in which the Warriors won by 2. Jimmy Butler was a plus 17. And that's the oddity of this basketball game. When Steph was great, he scores 40 points on 20 shots. He made 7 of his 13 threes. He got to the line 9 times. The Warriors actually were thoroughly outscored when Steph was on the floor. When Steph was on the floor for the Warriors tonight, the Nets outscored the Warriors 100-84. When Steph was on the bench, and this is, again, every second of what I'm about to tell you, every second that Steph was on the bench, Jimmy Butler was on the court for. During that stretch, when Steph was off the floor and when Jimmy was on, the Warriors outscored the Nets 37-19. Plus 18 without Steph tonight. If they are not elite without Steph, they lose this game by double digits, probably more like 20 or 25 points. That's how good the Nets were playing for whatever reason when Steph was on the court. And this isn't like me saying that Steph's had an empty 40 points tonight. No, of course not. It's just the way that the game goes, and sometimes it goes that way. Steph was awesome tonight. Jimmy Butler was equally as awesome. They do it in entirely different ways, but those two were the driving force behind this Warrior win. And after, I think, a little bit of frustration, specifically in Orlando, Jimmy really struggled offensively for the most part in Charlotte as well. You didn't really see him exert himself for the first half on Tuesday in New York against the Knicks. The game was really calling for him to turn it up, and then he did it in the second half, but it wasn't there in the first half either. In the second half in New York against the Knicks at Madison Square Garden, he was great. I have the numbers here for you. Jimmy Butler, in the second half at the Garden on Tuesday, 13 of his 19 points. He had no free throw attempts in the first half of that game. He went 7 of 9 from the line in the second half of that game, and he follows that up with what he did tonight in this one with 25 points, 7 of 13 from the field, 10 of 10 from the free throw line, 6 assists and 3 steals. He was awesome in this one. And then, as I'm seeing right now on our text line, 888-957-9570, the 408 chiming in, the 408 saying Curry still the best closer in the league when he needs to close the game out. Yes, and there's no doubt. Stephen Curry does Stephen Curry things in the fourth quarter. He is an elite closer, and he's showing on the eve of his he turns 37 on the 14th, 8 days from now, on the eve of his 37th birthday. He is still playing elite level basketball. Let me just read these statistics to you, because I think it really is eye-opening, and it tells you the kind of level that Steph is playing at right now. Okay, Steph Curry, since the Jimmy Butler trade was announced, all right? Steph Curry, since the Jimmy Butler trade was announced, so that's the last 14 games. These statistics, though, are prior to tonight. So last 13 games. And they are going to take an uptick because Steph scored 40 points tonight. But the first 13 games since the Jimmy Butler trade was announced, this includes the Utah and Laker games after the trade was announced, but before Jimmy Butler debuted. But since Steph got the news that Jimmy Butler was going to be a Warrior, and the Warriors again had the promise of new basketball, or promise of meaningful basketball again, this is Steph's numbers. 30.2 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game, 6.5 assists per game, shooting over 47% from the field and over 40% from downtown. Again, all of those will only go up with what happened tonight, because he scored 40 points. I guess the rebounds and assist numbers won't go up, but you know what I mean. The field goal percentage and the points will go up. 40 points, 12 of 20 from the field, 7 of 13 from downtown tonight. For reference, Steph's unanimous MVP season in 2015-2016, which is 9 years ago now. Unanimous MVP, the first and only unanimous MVP in NBA history. He averaged 30 points per game, 5.5 rebounds per game, 6.5 assists per game, on 50% from the field and 45% from deep. Stephen Curry, he's averaging basically the same amount of points, 1 rebound fewer per game, the same amount of assists, shooting about 2.5% worse, and 5% worse from downtown. And the 5% from downtown is a relatively big drop-off. The point, though, is Steph is playing nearly as good as he did when he won the unanimous MVP 9 years ago. The guy is on the eve of his 37th birthday. What Steph Curry is doing is not normal, and he's arguably having the best age 36 season and soon to be age 37 season of anybody in NBA history. He's certainly having maybe the best month-long stretch that we've seen from anybody at this advanced age in quite a long time. I'm sure we can find some LeBron stretches of similar level of impressiveness. But point is, if we're looking at LeBron as the only other example, like LeBron is the cheat to this. Stephen Curry is playing as good as he was 9 years ago, and he's about to be 37 years of age. That is utterly ridiculous what Steph is doing in this stretch since Jimmy Butler was acquired. The Warriors are now 35-28. They've won 3 straight games. This is now a 4-1 road trip as they return home. When Jimmy Butler plays, 8 consecutive wins. They're 10-1 overall in games in which Jimmy Butler plays, and they are alone in 6th place in the Western Conference again. Okay, time for a quick break here on a Warriors Wrap-Up. When we come back, we'll get to your phone calls. Roberto, I see you. Hang out on hold. Plus, I got some of your texts to get to, and you guys on YouTube as well. I will check in during the break as well. YouTube.com/957 The Game. Give me a call. Shoot me a text. 888-957-9570. Plenty more to get into. The Dubs pull off a wild win, down 22. They win by 2 in Brooklyn, 121-119. We're with you all night here on Warriors Wrap-Up. Back with more next on 95.7 The Game.
8 seconds left, so the Warriors will go into the break down to single digits after being down 22. But can it be a two-possession game? A heat from 35. Oh, my, from Stephen Curry! Oh, he's going to run to the locker room. There's still 3 tenths of a second, Steph. It won't matter. 60-55.
Now back to Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
How's the great Kevin Dana filling in for Tim Roy, doing a great job. I mean, that's Stephen Curry heave just before the halftime buzzer. Oh, my God. There's been so many amazing Steph Curry moments. Like, it's impossible to just slide that in somewhere, like in your mental Rolodex, right? Like, it's impossible because there's literally countless amazing Steph moments. If we're talking about, like, legitimately just a single shot, right? Like, there's some defining ones. The double bang in OKC in the 73-9 year, all his half court. I mean, there was the 3-quarter court one in the 2015 playoffs against the Grizzlies, the second round of the Western playoffs there. You know, the ring me moment, Boston Game 6, 2022. Like, there's so many individual, like, moments, and a lot of those are gigantic games in postseason or finals, or, you know, the game against OKC in the regular season, the double bang. If we're just talking about, like, level of difficulty of singular shots and the most impressive shot that he's made, I mean, that's got to be up there. He was just inside a half court. The clock is running down at the end of the second quarter. The Nets know that. Steph has the ball in his hands, so they double team him, and Steph just says, all right, you know what? I'm going to spin because I got my back to the basket. I'm going to fade away and hoist from like 37, 38 feet. I know the NBA.com tracking says it was only a 30-footer. I'm calling BS on that, by the way. I don't know why. They must, like, when they measure where the shots are and how far, they must measure, like, where the player lands once they shoot the ball, once they release it, like, on their jump. I mean, he took that just inside the logo. Like, that's got to be at least 35 feet, probably closer to, like, 37 or 38 feet. And he did it off a half spin, fade away, over a double team just before the halftime buzzer and just straight through. Like, only Steph Curry could possibly make that shot. The dude is just unbelievable, and he had another 40-point performance tonight. Again, if you missed it, his 70th 40-point game of his career, which ties Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Rick Barry for the 10th most 40-point games in NBA history. By the way, if you're curious who has the record most 40-point games in NBA history, it is who you'd expect it to be, Wilt Chamberlain, who finished with a measly 271 career 40-point games. Wilt, like, lapping the field with 271 40-point games. Steph tied for the 10th most all-time with 70 in his career. And the way that he's playing, I would venture to guess that he will pass Kareem and Rick Barry before this season is over. He is playing out of his mind right now. All right, 888-957-9570. Warriors win in Brooklyn. Again, the final score, 121-119. This win, by the way, does not come without its fair share of concerns. Warriors got down by 22 in the first quarter against a really bad basketball team. That's got to be concerning. And they have kind of consistently this road trip fallen behind early. In 4 of their 5 games on this trip, they have been down at halftime, including multiple times down by double digits. So we'll talk about that. There's reason to be concerned. This was not all sunshine and rainbows, but bottom line, a win is a win. The Warriors needed the win. They're back alone in 6th now in the Western Conference, and potentially they have a room to climb even higher before the regular season is over. We'll continue to get to all of that in just a little bit, but first, let's go out to the phone lines. As promised, Roberto has been hanging out on hold. Roberto's up in Santa Rosa. Shout out to the 707, Roberto. How you doing? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up. What's up?
Good evening to you, Mark. I just wanted to say I called before, and I actually don't have cable, so I listen to the game on the radio, and it's always been a blessing to spend time with you and your listeners afterwards here.
Awesome.
Let's say thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you listening.
Thank you. Yeah, it's my pleasure. So I wanted to actually ask your opinion about how high you thought the Warriors could go, and I was thinking, naturally, if I people would say, use a word like absurd if they think, the absurdity of them possibly going really, really high. But if you think of all the variables, especially what has recently happened with the Jimmy Jumper numbers for the Warriors, his influence, the free throws, Steph Curry playing on a higher level now, even higher than he was. And more importantly, if you have an assistant to help you crunch the numbers of our record, our remaining schedule, I heard it was favorable for us. And then I know Oklahoma is out of the question actually, but I'm talking about specifically the next 4 teams above us, their records. If you know anything about that, I wanted to know your humble, but yet a professional opinion. Do you think the Warriors could go as high as 4th, if not 3rd, at least? So thank you for your time.
Yeah, appreciate it, Roberto. I think 3 is probably dreaming a little too high, but I mean, I would say that the 4 is within the Warriors' reach. The 2 teams directly ahead of the Warriors, and Roberto, again, appreciate the call. You can join the conversation, 888-957-9570. The Warriors right now are 6th. We don't want to get too ahead of ourselves because the difference between the Warriors and a team in 9th, the Kings, is only 2 games. You go even a game beyond that, the Mavs in 10th are 3 games behind the Warriors. So there is room to drop, and it wouldn't take a lot to drop a couple of spots. But if we're just talking about how high they could go, I think the 4 is probably the peak. And it's not because the Warriors are necessarily super close. They're still 3.5 behind Memphis, who's in 4, 3 behind Houston, who's in 5. By the way, they stayed 3 behind because Houston won earlier today. They were in New Orleans, and they beat the Pelicans 109-97. So a big win there for Houston. So they stay 3 games above the Warriors. Memphis idle tonight, so the Warriors gain a half game on them. So again, only 3.5 behind Memphis, 3 behind Houston. I would venture to guess that Memphis is going to continue to lose games. Jaren Jackson Jr. is week to week with an ankle sprain, a grade 2 ankle sprain. Even before he got hurt, they were kind of falling down the standings a little bit. They've lost 4 in a row. They're 3-7 in their last 10. I think they are definitely gettable for the Warriors. Houston just behind Memphis and 3 games ahead of the Warriors. I'm not a huge believer in Houston down the stretch. I think they might have the ability to stay above or to gain, to leapfrog Memphis and maybe to stay above Memphis throughout the course of the rest of the regular season. Rockets, though, if they continue to struggle, they're only 5-5 in their last 10. The Warriors might be able to catch them as well. But if I'm venturing a guess of what is realistic, I would say the 4 is like the absolute max for the Warriors at this point. That's not because I don't think the Warriors are going to continue to win basketball games. It's more so respect for Denver and the Lakers, who are currently in the 2 and 3 spot right now. I think those are 2 teams that are going to continue to win basketball games, and they're just going to be winning games at a rate that is not going to allow the Warriors to make up a 5.5 game difference, which is what the Warriors are behind the Lakers and the Nuggets right now. So I'd say, Roberto, and again, appreciate the call, the 4 is the max for the Warriors. And now we can have an argument, and I don't really know what the answer is. What would be best for the Warriors? Would you rather be the 4 or the 6? Obviously, the 4 is preferable to the 5, almost regardless of opponent, maybe to a certain extent, because you would have home court advantage. But remember, with the 4-5 matchup, if you win that matchup, you then take on the 1 seed. The 1 seed is going to be Oklahoma City. They have an 11-game edge on the Lakers, who are number 2 right now. So OKC's the 1 seed. We can basically put that down in Sharpie. If you are the 4-5 and you win that first-round matchup, you then have OKC. I know there's a lot of Warrior fans out there who aren't that scared of OKC. I'm not quite that way. I think OKC scares me the most of anybody in the Western Conference. We just so easily write off lack of experience, especially when it's compared to the Lakers and the Nuggets. And I get it, but OKC is far and away the best and the most talented team in the Western Conference. I would be fearful of them. If you're the 6th seed and you get a team like potentially Memphis or Houston, I think that would be the dream for the Warriors, because then you would get a team that you think you should be able to beat in the first round. Plus, you would also avoid the OKC half of the bracket. But the likelihood is that if you're the 6th, you're probably going to take on the Lakers or the Nuggets in the first round. And that might be a matchup you would want to avoid for the Warriors. So maybe the best is to try to get the 4 or the 5. You take on either Memphis or Houston, and then you just deal with OKC in the second round if you get there. So, Roberto, I would say the 4 is the max, but depending on how everything else plays out, I think there's different permutations and different orders of the seeds that are maybe best for the Warriors, again, depending on who's the 3, depending on who's the 2, and so on and so forth. But the 4, I would imagine, is the very highest the Warriors can climb. It's amazing we're even talking about this, considering what the conversation was like 3 weeks ago, because if you were to ask me when this trade went down, which I guess now is about a month ago, when this trade went down, would the Warriors be alone in the 6th seed on the evening of March 6th? No, I would call you crazy. And if you told me there was a realistic chance the Warriors could be the 4 at season's end, I would have told you to go home, because there's no way that you would be speaking any sense. But that is the Warriors' reality right now. Almost everything around them has kind of broken their way, and they've, of course, played really, really good basketball. They're now 10-1 when Jimmy Butler plays. They've won 8 consecutive games when Jimmy Butler plays, and they just wrapped up a 4-1 road trip with wins against the Knicks, with wins against the Magic, the Hornets, and now the Nets. Things are going really, really well for the Warriors at this stage. I wanted to address something that one of our texters brought up. Let me scroll back and see if I can find it. And you can join the conversation, 888-957-9570. That's also the number to call if you would like. And we've got our YouTube chat rolling, as always, youtube.com/957 The Game. Everything we do on Twitch and YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. The 510 asks, since Jimmy Butler arrived, is this the best the Warriors have been at getting to the free throw line in the Stephen Curry era? 510, that's a very good question. I can't answer it in terms of the whole Steph Curry era, but I can give you some crazy statistics as it relates to just this season, and then I'll dive into those numbers a little bit more later on, 510, when I have a second to look through them. How about this? The Warriors' NBA ranks this season only in the first 51 games, which is pre-Jimmy Butler. The Warriors would attempt the 27th most free throws per game, and they made the fewest per game. So not only would they not get to the line, they made them at a clip lower than anybody else. And in fact, officially, free throw percentage in the first 51 games, dead last in the NBA. So 27th in free throw attempts per game, 30th in makes per game, and 30th in percentage from the free throw line, pre-Jimmy Butler. Post-Jimmy Butler, the Warriors, 9th in free throw attempts per game. So from 27th to 9th in the number of attempts per game. Free throws made per game, 30th to 3rd. Free throw percentage, 30th to 1st.
My man!
It is amazing how Jimmy Butler has single-handedly turned that around. Again, he's made maybe the Warriors' biggest weakness to this point a serious, gigantic strength. It is amazing how that has turned around. Again, least amount of free throw makes per game to the 3rd most, lowest free throw percentage to the best free throw percentage. That is the Jimmy Butler effect right there. Great question on our text line. Again, 888-957-9570. And again, thanks to the 510 for that question. Let's go back out to the phone lines. It's Warriors wrap-up here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Grandy with you. The Dubs knock off the Nets 121-119, 10-1 when Jimmy Butler plays, and they're alone in 6th in the Western Conference once again. Miguel is in Hayward, and he wants to join this conversation. What's up, Miguel?
Man, what's up, man? You like just let me say, Warriors.
Yes, sir, Miguel.
Man, look, I'm witnessing history. Look, I didn't grow up watching MJ. I was born in the year 88. But, man, watching Curry play basketball is a blessing. I'm over here cooking in the kitchen, hearing the radio. I'm over here going to the living room watching the game. I'm going left and right. I barely sit down. We're losing by 22 points, like if I'm not mistaken. And then it's about to be halftime. Then Curry out of nowhere just shoots a 3, and I just dropped my fruit salad out of my mouth. I was just like, man, I'm witnessing history right now. And right now, he's the MVP, period. But just let me say, go Warriors. Everybody's playing good. Even Draymond Green is playing good. Man, he's over there playing like a coach. It's just crazy. Everybody's playing good. We're not selfish. Go Warriors, man. And I love y'all show. You guys take care.
Hey, appreciate it, Miguel. Hope the fruit salad survived this Steph Curry onslaught. Yeah, I mean, that shot by Steph at the end of the first half, I think that just makes everybody drop what they're doing, jaws to the floor. I mean, that was an amazing moment. But Miguel, you brought up something that I want to touch on, and I saw it on our YouTube chat as well. I think I saw it from Carlos. Shout out to Carlos, youtube.com/957thegame. Everything we do there, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. I also have seen this on our text line, 888-957-9570, and I saw this a lot on Twitter as well throughout the game tonight. Warriors down 27-5 before you can even blink in this game, down by 22 points. How many of you out there felt like, no problem, they're going to win this basketball game? How many of you out there felt that way? Because I felt that way. I know Carlos felt that way. I think Miguel felt that way. I think a lot of Warrior fans are feeling that way. And it is amazing how quickly it has turned. Because, I mean, we just rewind a month ago. You tell me the Warriors are down by 22 in the first quarter, there is a 0% chance they come back and win that basketball game. 0%. This was a team that could be up by 10 in the fourth quarter, and I might predict they would lose that basketball game. Now they're down 20 or more in the first quarter, and I feel like they're going to come back and win, and I get part of it is the opponent. The Nets are not very good. With the loss, they fell to 21-41, right? Bad basketball team. Not making an excuse. But down by 22 in a basketball game, like, it shouldn't feel like as okay as that it felt for the Warriors tonight. And it is a complete reversal from how it felt early in the season. And that's just how good things are going for the Warriors right now. And I think it speaks to something larger. Because, and yeah, Theodore on our YouTube chat saying the same exact thing. I was never concerned. And Carlos is confirming, raise hand up. He felt the same exact way. I think this speaks to something larger, and it gets to what we were talking about a little bit on Tuesday with the Steph can smell blood in the water, right? And the acquisition of Jimmy Butler kind of put blood in the water. It gave Steph the confidence that, hey, like, if I just play the way that I know I can play, we're going to be a really good basketball team. Because prior to the Jimmy Butler acquisition, Steph could go out and score 40 for you, and the Warriors could still lose by 15. Like, Steph had to be so incredibly good and had to do it at such incredible efficiency just for the Warriors to be close and to stay competitive with any team. Not just a great team, but like any team across the NBA. Like, Steph would have great performances against the Kings, and the Kings would win by 20. There was the game against Miami at home. I believe it was in January. I can go back and find it. Give me one sec. Where is it? Miami. Yeah, January 7th, Steph scored 31. The Warriors lost by 16, and it wasn't that close. Steph was the only thing going in a number of games for the Warriors. But now Steph can feel blood in the water, and I think it's easier for him to summon that level night in and night out. And, of course, you have the backup. You have Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy Butler, in turn, makes others play better. And it's the same thing for Draymond. Draymond impacts games in a different way, right? He's never going to score 30 for you in a basketball game, but he gives Draymond, Jimmy Butler does, the confidence, much like he gives Steph Curry that confidence. And you can see them playing with a different level of energy and enthusiasm and belief. And I think we as fans and as those of us watching the games can feel it too. And it's why Theodore and Carlos and myself, and I'm seeing it as well, D. Lou on the YouTube chat. It's why we're all feeling that level of confidence too. And it is absolutely absurd how quickly it's turned. Again, you could tell me, and there were games where the Warriors would get out to a big lead. They'd lead by 15 or 20 in the first half. And, you load up if you're, a partaker in the sports betting landscape, you load up the other team and you say, hey, the live money line for whichever team the Warriors are playing, you're getting a pretty good number on it right now because the Warriors are up by 20, but I got confidence that they're going to blow this thing. It has absolutely reversed. And it is amazing how quickly that it has happened. And now you've got me feeling like Warriors down 20 in the first half. No big deal. No big deal. And you know what tonight felt like? And you know what a lot of these recent Warrior games have felt like? it's felt like championship era Warriors. And I'll explain to you why. I felt the same exact thing in Orlando at halftime when the Warriors were down big and you catch an opponent who's just shooting lights out for whatever reason. I felt it a little bit Tuesday in New York, although not quite as much as I did in Orlando and not quite as much as I did tonight. Warriors either play a terrible half or an opponent has an amazing half. And then you go into halftime and you think, all right, Warriors just kind of turn it on here for a quarter and then they'll be good and they'll win this basketball game. How many times in the championship era would you feel like the Warriors kind of sleptwalked through a half or at least through a quarter and they get down big and then you just say, all right, let's flip a switch. Flip a switch. We'll play great for 12 minutes. Not even. We'll play great for 6 minutes and we'll turn a 20-point deficit into a 5-point lead. Like, that's how elite those Warriors teams were. And they can't do it as quickly with this squad, but that level of confidence that they have really reminds me of those championship era teams. And there was a little bit of like Brooklyn doing themselves a disservice tonight, because you remember in the first quarter when things were going great for Brooklyn, right? Steph had that offensive foul early after the Nets scored on him, and he was catching the inbound pass, and he kind of lowered his shoulder into, I believe it was Keon Johnson, gets called for the offensive foul. Keon gets up, and Steph kind of steps into his face and is barking at him, throws the ball away. Steve Kerr gets a technical, and then at the very end of the first quarter when the Warriors were down 20, Draymond, not Draymond, GP2 starts like a mini scuffle as the first quarter buzzer sounds. Like, the Nets got under the Warriors' skin, and it kind of just felt like they're like, all right, you poked the bear. You best be ready for what's coming now. And that's what the Warriors would do when they were winning championships. Like, it was never smart to get up in the Warriors' face and to frankly piss them off like that. They upset Steph, and you know how Steph responded? 40 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, 12 of 20 from the field, 7 of 13 from downtown, 9 of 9 from the free throw line. Steph said, all right, I see you. Okay. I'm going to go to the bench here and stew on that at the end of this first quarter, and I'm going to come out and I'm going to have something for you. We didn't have that this year or before the Jimmy Butler trade. We didn't have that last year. It's been a while since we had that. We didn't even really have that in 23 when they won a playoff series. It was Steph's single-handed brilliance that won them that Game 7 in Sacramento when he scored 50, but it wasn't like this innate, overwhelming sense of confidence by the Warriors that they seem to have now and that they had when they won championships. They had it, I think, a little bit in 22 as well when they won the championship, but the 22 team was just so solid. They didn't ever fall behind by a ton, it felt like. It would happen at times in the Kevin Durant era where they just kind of, it's a random Thursday night game on the road, end of a road trip against a subpar team. You're trotting out Steph and KD and Clay and Draymond. Like, all right, we can just kind of take our foot off the gas pedal. A night off in New York City like the Warriors had leading up to this one as well. Like, all right, let's go enjoy ourselves. We'll be fine against the Nets. Not that the Warriors would actively try to hurt their chances to win a basketball game, but there was just that incredible sense of belief and confidence because they were so talented and they worked so well together. They could kind of get away with that. They haven't been able to get away with that in the past. And they feel that incredible level of confidence, again, where you get down by 20, whatever. That takes just like 8 minutes of good basketball, and we'll be right back in it. And by the way, tonight, that 8 minutes of good basketball to get them back in it was without Steph on the floor. And they went to a lineup tonight that was incredibly interesting. Really interesting. And I'm going to get to that in a little bit here on Warriors Wrap-Up. But first, back out to the phone lines, 888-957-9570. Warriors win in Brooklyn, 121-119, a 4-1 road trip, 3 straight wins, 8 straight wins when Jimmy Butler plays. Overall, 10-1 when Jimmy Butler plays. And the Warriors, with the win, they move a half game ahead of the Clippers. They are again 6th in the Western Conference by themselves. Is it ahead of the Clippers now? Yes. Oh, no, pardon me. It's ahead of the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves jumped the Clippers for 7. The Warriors a half game ahead of the Timberwolves and a game and a half now ahead of the Clippers. That's right. The Clippers, they fell to Phoenix. They blew that 23-point lead the other night. The Clippers did the Phoenix Suns came back and won that basketball game. All right, back out to the phones. 888-957-9570. Ray is in Los Altos. What's up, Ray? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up with Mark Grandy. How you doing?
Good. First of all, I mean, it's definitely a very good comeback win. I was very surprised. I kind of saw before Jimmy Butler trade Warriors, definitely the first quarter there, where they were down 20. But I guess the question I had, or just wanted to ask you, was, I mean, I kind of glance at the Western Conference standings right now, and I mean, when you're only like 3-4 games behind Grizzlies and the Rockets, I mean, I feel like you don't even need a total collapse from one of these teams, like the Lakers are further up, obviously. But you don't even need a total collapse from the Grizzlies or the Rockets to catch them. I mean, I don't think it's that challenging. I just want to wonder your opinions on that.
Yeah, appreciate the call, Ray. Let's take a look again at the Western standings at the moment, up to the second. And there's only, let me check on the scores. I think there's only one outstanding NBA game right now, and it is down in L.A. Knicks and Lakers, just beginning of the second half. The Knicks, by the way, they have a 12-point lead over the Lakers. They just came out and dominated the second quarter. Knicks 63, Lakers 51 right now. That's the only current game going on at the moment across the NBA. That game's important for the Warriors because where the Lakers are in the standings is important to the Warriors. I think the Warriors should probably be rooting for the Lakers to be the 2 seed, which would take the Warriors versus the Lakers off the board in any likely first-round postseason series. If the Lakers are the 2, the only way the Warriors would play the Lakers is if they fall to either the 7 or the 8, and they win that first play-in game to claim the 7 seed. Then they would take on the 2 seed, which would be the Lakers in this theory. That's the only game currently going on right now in the NBA. The only other game of import in the West today, Houston in New Orleans against the Pelicans, and Houston earns the win 109-97. So these Western Conference standings are official and won't really change for the rest of the night, at least the part that we're talking about. Memphis is 38-24. Houston is 38-25. The Warriors are 35-28. So the Warriors 3.5 behind Memphis and 3 behind Houston. Behind the Warriors are in 6. Behind the Warriors, Minnesota in 7, a half game behind. The Clippers are in 8, a game and a half behind the Warriors. The Kings are in 9, 2 games behind the Warriors. And the Mavericks are in 10, 3 full games behind the Warriors. So still only 3 games between 6 and 10. There is room that the Warriors could drop pretty quickly if they lose a few basketball games. But there's also plenty of room for them to grow upward. I think the most likely scenario is probably Houston rights the ship a little bit and they get the 4. The Warriors could catch Memphis and the Warriors could be the 5. And I think that's seeming, I would guess that's somewhat likely considering the way Memphis is playing. They're without Jaren Jackson Jr. If the Warriors keep their winning ways up, I could see them catching Memphis and being the 5. Houston also catches Memphis. They're the 4. And we got a Rockets-Warriors first-round matchup in the 4-5, which I think the Warriors would feel pretty confident in at that point. Again, that then means you have OKC in the second round if you are to win that one. But you can't really look too far ahead. And you're going to have to play good teams in the playoffs at some point. I think that is likely. I have a little bit more belief in Houston the rest of the season than I do Memphis because of Memphis's injuries. And maybe that means the Warriors, maybe they cap out at the 5 seed. But I also don't think the 6 is a terrible spot. That just means you're probably going to have to play one of either the Lakers or the Nuggets in the first round because I don't have belief that Memphis or Houston will catch either of those other 2 teams, the Lakers or the Nuggets, to become the 3 seed. I think the dream would be Memphis or Houston is the 3, the Warriors are the 6, which means you then get to take on either of those teams, whichever is the 3, and you get to avoid the OKC half of the bracket. That, I think, would be the dream, but I just have no faith that Memphis or Houston can catch either the Lakers or the Nuggets. So you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. Do you want to be in the OKC half of the bracket, or do you want to potentially take on the Lakers or the Nuggets in the first round? I would probably recommend or suggest that taking on Memphis or Houston in the first round and then being in the OKC half would probably be better than taking on the Lakers or the Nuggets in the first round of the playoffs. But there's plenty of time for this all to change. Who knows? We don't know how it's going to look come the middle of April. But the Warriors do have an opportunity to continue to climb up. If they play the way they're playing, I think they're going to catch Memphis. They're only 3.5 behind right now. They have the tiebreaker currently. They play them one more time. They have the tiebreaker over Houston. They also play them one more time. Even if they lose that matchup, they still have the tiebreaker over Houston. So they don't necessarily have to surpass these teams. They may only have to equal them in terms of wins and losses, and then they might get the leg up on them as well. But time will tell. I think the 4 is the absolute highest the Warriors can go. 5 is more likely. 6 is probably still the likeliest, but I don't think 5 at all is out of the realm of possibility. 888-957-9570. I know Jimmy in Bayview wants to talk a little bit more about postseason positioning. Let's get into it. What's up, Jimmy? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. How you doing?
Hey, Mark. Happy to be on the show. Hey, when's the parade for your repeat victory? Because, I want to be there and see all the faces of your coworkers when you've got that WWF belt.
Sorry, what my repeat victory?
Hell yeah!
Oh, knockout! You're talking about knockout?
Yeah, they're all sour.
They are. They're hating on me, Jimmy.
Yeah, the parade. I'm waiting for the parade.
Okay, anyway, I'll send you an invite when it's scheduled.
All right, that's great. You need a big WWF belt to carry around the office or whatever. You were talking about exactly what I was looking at after this game. The Warriors need to get to 5th to have some action. They want to avoid the Lakers and the Nuggets because they're both have champions on their teams, and let them beat up on each other. And a 4th versus a 5th seed, you've got a really good chance. You've moved up 5 spots, and then you're playing OKC. I mean, you've got some we believe action going there. They're young, and I would take them over the Lakers or the Nuggets. We just don't seem to play well against either one of those teams. And I'm with you. I think there's some. If we get into the 5th position, which is 4th is a lot, but the 5th position or the 4th, then you've got some momentum going. Got some real momentum going, and nobody wants to see us. But I don't have cable anymore, so I got to listen literally on the radio to the game. I turned it on, and we're down 20, and I'm like, all right, let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can do. Draymond's birthday, maybe a little slow to the gate, but it was a great win. Great just to see Jimmy grind him down a little, and Pods was out. It's a good win. So it's really nice to see. Anyway, thanks for letting me speak.
Yeah, appreciate the call, Jimmy, and thanks for the love. I'll be sure to let you know when the parade is scheduled for my 2nd straight knockout championship. Of course, joking, no parade for that. I think you brought up a good point, Jimmy. The word that you used, momentum, right? If the Warriors can climb up to the 5 seed, you go into the postseason with momentum. You remember what seed the Mavericks were when they entered the playoffs last year? They were the 5 seed, and they clinched the 5 seed like on the last day of the regular season, jumps the Phoenix Suns. I guess they clinched it maybe a couple of days before, but they did it with a crazy close to the regular season. They were like the hottest team in the NBA going into the postseason. And in fact, they were so hot they could kind of rest the final 2 games of the regular season. They were both losses, but still got the 5 seed. They didn't have to push themselves incredibly hard down the stretch. And by the way, with the added play-in tournament, even if you're just a top 6 seed, even if you had to work very hard down to game 82, you get a whole week off. So there is a built-in rest if you avoid the play-in that you get. So it's worthwhile to go all out over the course of a full 82 if it means you are a top 6 seed. My only point is what Jimmy brought up, the word momentum. Dallas went into the postseason with momentum as the 5 seed. They beat the Clippers in the first round despite not having home court advantage. Then they took on a young OKC team in the second round, and they beat them as well. Of course, then we know it was Minnesota, and they went all the way to the NBA Finals where they lost to the Boston Celtics. But that was a Dallas team that at this point of the season where the Warriors are right now wasn't really a team that a lot of people feared. I think the Warriors at this point are a team that certain teams out there are going to be fearful of, especially if they continue down the stretch. But I think what Jimmy said, again, the word momentum is key, because you could go into the postseason, the hottest team in the league, and suddenly you can kind of throw seeding out the door, right? Dallas was a 5 seed last year. They won 3 series against teams seeded above them. They beat the 4 seed, they beat the 3 seed, and they beat the 1 seed on the way to the NBA Finals. Not saying that it's going to follow the same exact order and equation and path for the Warriors this year. But just because you're the 5 seed does not mean you're not a good basketball team. It's very similar. I think of it in a very similar way as how we view the Major League Baseball playoffs. I think we see it so much more often in the MLB playoffs because the elite teams in Major League Baseball, you're kind of just at the whim of a great pitching performance by an opponent, and then you're behind the 8 ball, and there's so much more room for volatility in the baseball playoffs. It's why the number 1 seed, although the Dodgers this past year, we can forget about them, the number 1 seed in baseball, like actually relatively rarely ends up winning it all, at least compared to what happens in basketball. You have a stark difference between the top of the NBA and the bottom of the NBA as it's compared, bottom of the NBA playoffs as it compares to the top of the MLB and the bottom of the MLB playoffs. There's a much wider difference in skill and ability, I think, there. But if you go into the Major League Baseball playoffs with that momentum, you're the hottest team in baseball. Same thing can be said, I think, in this day and age of the NBA, and specifically in this Western Conference, where you have a lot of really quality teams that are jockeying around. And you're a Warrior team with this postseason pedigree, and with the Hall of Famer, 3 Hall of Famers, with Steph, Dre, and Jimmy Butler on your squad, including a multi-time MVP and a Finals MVP, a group that knows how to win in the postseason. That's different than just any other 4 or 5 or 6 seed. This Warrior team, if they go into the postseason with that momentum, I mean, I'll tell you what, Vegas would favor them in a 4 versus 5 matchup versus Memphis or Houston. I feel that to my core. The Warriors would be favored versus Memphis and Houston in a postseason series, and it might be, it won't be nearly as lopsided as you would think a 1 versus 4 or 5 would feel if the Warriors were the 4 or 5 there, or a 3 versus 6 would feel. Like 3 Denver, 6 Warriors, I wouldn't say it would be a pick'em. I think Denver would be favored, but slightly. Like, that is not just your old any other 6 seed. The Warriors in this postseason, if they continue the way that they're playing right now, they're going to feel a whole lot different than any other 6 seed would. 888-957-9570. Let's go out to Brett in Walnut Creek. Brett is up next here on Warriors Wrap Up by 95.7 The Game. What's up, Brett?
What's going on, my man? Hey, I got to be honest. This trade, if this pans out, this might be the best trade in Warriors history with Jimmy Butler, even more so than the Wiggins trade. And I'm starting to ask myself, Andrew, who? Because everybody's, we can't lose Wiggs, and he's a 2-way player. Man, Jimmy has brought so much energy to this team. It's like a brand new team, and we're not wasting Curry's prime years. I mean, hats off to Dunleavy, hats off to Lacob for pulling the trigger on that deal. I mean, this is a rejuvenated Warriors basketball team. And the one thing that, even more so than seeding, to me, is health. Because the team that is coming in hot, yes, they plays huge. But the team that's coming in healthy, that's the one that's going to go far in the game. Thanks for taking my call, boss.
Yeah, appreciate it, Brett. Yeah, and I feel that way as well. I mean, the Jimmy Butler trade, it's amazing how it has turned things around. I mean, just we can look at the record, right? The record is phenomenal. Games when Jimmy Butler plays, the Warriors are 10-1. You could look at like any number of statistics. I mentioned the free throws earlier. Warriors went from least free throws made per game pre-Jimmy Butler to third most free throws made per game post-Jimmy Butler. They went from the worst free throw percentage team in the NBA pre-Jimmy Butler to the best free throw percentage team in the NBA post-Jimmy Butler. It's a similar story with turnovers committed and turnovers forced and points off of turnovers. The non-Steph minutes have largely been a positive since the Jimmy Butler acquisition, when before they were a disaster. The defense in terms of points allowed per game, field goal percentage allowed pre and post Jimmy Butler. They're also scoring more points per game. Like, across the board, it is a drastic improvement in nearly every single statistical category, and that has all translated to the wins. Again, 10-1 when Jimmy Butler plays, and the Warriors are now 7 games over 500 at 35-28, and they're alone at 6th in the Western Conference. Back out to the phones we go, 888-957-9570. Jay in his driveway. What's up, Jay? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up. How you doing?
I'm good, Grandy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. We're just, trying to make sense of who this Warrior team is.
Life, huh? Just living your best life.
I'm having fun, Jay.
What? Yeah, have a little fun. So are you thinking about the three-peat?
Oh, am I thinking about a knockout three-peat? Yeah, I mean, when it comes around next year, I'm going to go all out for it, no doubt.
Yeah, I hear you're humble.
I mean, I don't want to just rub it in everyone's face 24/7.
Well, everyone's asleep right now, so why don't you go ahead and talk a little? How you feeling?
I feel great, Jay, and I appreciate you setting me up this way. Yeah, I mean, this is Warriors Wrap-Up. This isn't time for Grandy to gloat. I have myself a nice performance on Monday. I'm not ashamed to admit it. Maybe my head's getting a little bit big, but yeah, when knockout comes around next year, I'm gonna gun as hard as possible for the three-peat. What I can tell everybody, and if you're a loyal listener, you know what I'm talking about right now. We do a yearly, we just had our second edition of it, a yearly knockout tournament at Chase Center. The Warriors allow us to take over the court for a day, which is awesome. Thank you so much to the Warriors for allowing us to put on this event. And we run like a month-long contest, filling up slots from listeners, for listeners to come onto the Warriors court, to come onto Chase Center, and to compete with us. And it's an amazing experience. It's so much fun. You know, this job is a dream, and there's so many cool perks. Honestly, being able to play basketball on the Chase Center floor might be the best perk of all. So all I will say is, when this comes around next year, do everything possible to get one of the spots in the knockout tournament. It is an absolute thrill, and it's going to be something that sticks with me. Not winning the knockout, but just being on the Chase Center floor and shooting a regulation NBA basketball. It is an amazing experience. But what I can share with you as I look forward to the third edition of our knockout tournament is we might have multiple prizes the next time we play knockout, because what we did this year was the listener that advanced the furthest got 2 tickets to a future Warrior game, and they got a free customized Warriors jersey, right? So you go to the Warriors shop, and you can get a customized Warrior jersey. You can put whatever number, whatever name on it you want, which is an awesome prize. What I've heard rumblings of is next year, there's going to be 2 prizes. Similar prize for the furthest advancing listener, plus a prize given out to whoever knocks me out. So anyone that knocks me out is going to get a prize as well. Now, that's not confirmed, but that's a possibility as we begin preparations for year 3 of the knockout tournament. We have that to look forward to coming up. Should be a lot of fun. I want to get to something else, though, here on Warriors Wrap-Up as we circle back to the actual Warriors game. Appreciate Jay, though, for letting me get a couple of things off there about knockout. Warriors win over the Nets, 121-119. That was the final score. There was an interesting moment in this basketball game where the Warriors began the fourth quarter with a unit that we haven't really seen all year. And part of this is because of the Podziemski injury. And Podziemski, by the way, if you missed it, he randomly grabbed at his lower back early in the game, like a minute into the game. I think it was 44 seconds in, he subbed out. and he was navigating around a screen, but there was nothing physical. There was not a lot of contact. I think just something happened. It usually happens when you get older, but you sometimes you walk in the wrong way or you twist slightly and something just goes out. He immediately grabbed at his lower back and immediately signaled to the bench and walked down the tunnel into the locker room. Did not return. 44 seconds in. Steve Kerr has said post-game, doesn't appear to be serious. It just tightened up on him and that he's day-to-day moving forward. So it looks like the Warriors avoided something serious. But I think part of the reason why the Warriors had to go to something experimental in terms of the 5 on the floor was because they were without Podziemski. And the Warriors turned to this group to begin the fourth quarter. They went with Jimmy Butler, who was essentially playing point guard, Moses Moody, Guy Santos, Draymond Green, and Quentin Post. That is, as far as the Warriors are concerned, an absurdly big starting 5. You have a 7-footer in Post, although he's not a prototypical 7-footer. He's getting better in the paint, though. We saw a little bit of that tonight. But Post and Draymond, Santos as your 3, Moody as your 2. Moody has been playing more as a 4 of late, and then Butler as your point guard. And what that group allowed the Warriors to do is it allowed them to pick on the shorter guards for the Nets. And Jimmy Butler, he just abused D'Angelo Russell over and over and over again. It also happened earlier in the game. Moody took him to task on a drive and a finish down low. Quentin Post, I think, did it as well. It might not have been against D'Angelo. I know it was against D'Angelo Russell. I don't know if he scored that one, but he got a good look at it. Butler did it often, and especially in that fourth quarter. It also led to a situation where Cam Thomas, a wing, is on Quentin Post, and Post backed him down from the left corner and into the paint and got a bucket. Like, the Warriors played a group, Butler, Moody, Santos, Draymond, Post. Like, that's almost as big as the Warriors could possibly get. Not that Draymond is like a big 4, but you got a big 3 in there in Santos, a big, strong 2 in Moody, and a gigantic point guard in Jimmy Butler. You have mismatches all over the place. On the flip side, is that group quick enough and athletic enough to defend the quick, wings of the Nets? Honestly, it was. Butler can guard. Moody can guard. Santos is quick and athletic, and Draymond, we know he can guard everybody. But that group gave the Warriors mismatches on nearly every single offensive possession. And it led to easy buckets. And that group, again, Butler, Moody, Santos, Draymond, and Post, it led to a 9-2 Warriors run to start the fourth quarter. Then Steph came in, and he continued the run. Ultimately, it was a 15-4 Warriors run to begin the fourth quarter, and they rode that run to a victory. I thought it was really interesting how Steve Kerr went to that group. Jimmy Butler, Moses Moody, Guy Santos, Draymond Green, and Quentin Post. That was interesting, and it worked. I don't know if we're going to see that group often going forward, because when Podziemski comes back, that obviously makes it difficult to make it to include that 4 specifically. But you could you're still kind of big if, say, you go Podziemski, Butler, Moody, Draymond, Post. We have seen that group at times, but the addition of Santos and the subtraction of Podziemski just makes the mismatches so much easier to find. You almost don't have to screen anybody. Like, oftentimes you try to bring up a screen to get a switch, and then you have a mismatch. You don't have to do that with that group, because whoever the smallest net is, you're going to have a mismatch. Moody is big enough and strong enough, and honestly, I think Moody needs to realize this more. Moody, you have a point guard on you. You have D'Angelo Russell on you. Take him to task. Clear out a side. Moody, back him down. I know that's not your game necessarily, but you have the strength to get that done. That group kind of just emphasizes mismatches, and the Warriors did a great job of hunting those mismatches in that basketball game. I thought it was really, really interesting the way that one played out. And it led to a big run, 9-2 beginning, led by that group. Ultimately, a 15-4 Warriors start to begin the fourth quarter, and that's a big reason why they won this basketball game. Again, the final score, 121-119. How about this statistic, by the way? We just got done talking about that run to begin the fourth. Warriors were down by a couple going into the fourth quarter. They were down 89-86 after 3. They come back and they win, again, with a 35-30 fourth quarter to win by a final score of 121-119. Entering tonight, the Warriors were 1-22 when trailing after 3 quarters. 1-22 when down after 3. They won tonight. Only their second win all season, and 24 times they have trailed at the end of 3 quarters. Amazing. It's kind of crazy that statistic exists because there's so many games where you're just neck and neck, and it's like a 1, 2, 3, or 4 point game after 3 quarters, and the Warriors had only been 1-22 in those games. A win tonight after trailing after the third quarter. They're now 2-22 when trailing after 3. Crazy that is a real statistic. I think we'll see the Warriors win a couple more games when trailing after 3 this year, not because or the rest of the season, not because I expect they're going to trail a lot after 3, but because whenever they do, they're much more equipped now to win basketball games down the stretch. Okay, we got to take a break here on Warriors Wrap Up. When we come back, we will wrap things up. One more segment with you here on Warriors Wrap Up. More time for your calls and your texts. 888-957-9570. Mark Grandy with you on Warriors Wrap Up. An extended Warriors Wrap Up tonight because, hell, it's a 4-1 road trip and the Dubs alone in 6th in the Western Conference. We'll get to more when we come back. It's Mark Grandy with you. Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
104-97, and the Warriors lead by 7. Steph is 6-3 of the game. He's got 31.
Now back to Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game.
Welcome back. Mark Grandy with you here for an extended Warriors wrap-up on a Thursday evening. The Dubs knock off the Nets 121-119. That was the final score. We still got to hear from Warriors head coach Steve Kerr. Plenty to get to here and plenty of time for your calls and your texts. 888-957-9570. I think what's really interesting about this Warriors team right now is they are winning games in a number of different ways, but what is troublesome is they have slow starts like over and over and over again. How about this from the Warriors? This road trip, the Warriors in first halves have been outscored by 30 points. That's in 5 first halves, outscored by 30 points. And I guess I could quickly do the math and find out how many points they have outscored teams by in second halves. Let me see if I can do that on the fly here with you. But in the first halves, the Warriors outscored by 14 in Orlando, outscored by 12 in Philadelphia. They outscored Charlotte by 9, outscored by the Knicks by 8, and outscored by the Nets tonight by 5. Outscored by 30 points in 5 first halves on this road trip. Meanwhile, in second halves, let's work on this together here. I got to zoom in. My eyes aren't good enough to read this fine print on the Warriors game notes. In second halves, the Warriors on this road trip, beginning with Orlando, outscored Orlando by 20. They were outscored by Philadelphia by 5. They outscored Charlotte by 9. And they outscored the Knicks by 20. And then they outscored tonight, they outscored the Nets in the second half by 7 points. By 7 points in the second half in this one. So if we bring out our calculator and add these numbers up, where did my cell phone go? There it is. Warriors, again, in first halves on this road trip, outscored by 30 points. Outscored by 30 points in first halves. But in second halves, they have been outscoring their opponents. Let's see here. If I can add these numbers up quick. 20 in Orlando, they get outscored. 20 in Orlando, they get outscored by 5 in Philadelphia. They outscore Charlotte by 9. They outscore the Knicks by 20. And they outscore Brooklyn tonight by, what did we say, 7? Yeah, by 7. They have outscored opponents by 51 points in second halves. So you get outscored by 30 in first halves, and you outscore opponents by 51 in second halves. I don't know how sustainable that is. So if there's one concern for the Warriors, it is the slow starts, because you're not going to be able to consistently dominate second halves. Now, to their credit, they have been pretty darn good in second halves of late. And this goes beyond just this road trip, but they outscored, remember, in Jimmy Butler's debut, they outscored the Bulls by 35 points in that one, plus 9 against Houston, plus 7 against Sacramento, but those were games where they had a really good first half. You're not always going to be able to dominate second halves, right? In Orlando, you outscore them by 20. In New York, you outscore them by 20. That's not going to happen all of the time. Although generally, the better teams play better in the second halves. But you're going to need to have better first half. So that is a concern, I think, moving forward. But what is encouraging if you are the Warriors, it is the second half numbers. But this was a game tonight where the Warriors, they lose the turnover battle. They committed 17 turnovers. And for this team, considering what they've been of late, that has become rare. They don't really turn the ball over. In fact, in the Jimmy Butler era, this was the most turnovers the Warriors have committed. The previous high was 16 in a loss at Dallas. So their previous high in a win, a game in which they won in the Jimmy Butler era, was 15 in his debut against Chicago. They have a game with multiple games where they committed just 9 turnovers. A game where they commit 10, 11, 12, 14, also a 13, a 14 turnover game, a 15 turnover game. Never before had they committed 17 turnovers in a game with Jimmy Butler. They did that tonight, and they won the game. They lost the points off of turnovers battle. They only forced 12 turnovers themselves. The Nets scored 23 points off of the 17 Warrior turnovers. The Warriors scored 18 points off of the 12 Brooklyn turnovers. So the Warriors were actually better in terms of efficiently turning turnovers into points than the Nets were, but still, you committed 5 more turnovers and allowed 5 more points off of turnovers, yet you won this basketball game. Encouraging, not that they committed those turnovers, but that they were able to win a basketball game in which you committed that many turnovers. So that, I think, is an encouraging sign in and of itself, because you know that the larger sample suggests the Warriors are not going to commit 17 turnovers when Jimmy Butler is playing that often. And I think that is pretty clear, again, considering what they've done over the last handful of games. So they do that, yet they win. They fall behind by 22, yet they win. Really, everything the Warriors are doing right now ends in a yet they win. And they won tonight. Again, final score 121-119. Okay, let's hear from Warriors head coach Steve Kerr. He addressed the media earlier tonight in Brooklyn after the Warriors' 121-119 win. A 4-1 road trip. The Warriors 3 straight wins, 8 straight wins when Jimmy Butler plays, 10-1 overall with Jimmy Butler, and they're alone in 6th place again in the Western Conference. Here is Warriors head coach Steve Kerr postgame tonight in Brooklyn. Give me one sec. Click the wrong button here. Here is Warriors head coach Steve Kerr in Brooklyn.
A very professional win tonight to come back from 22 down right out of the gates. Give them credit. They just were amazing that, that first quarter, they took it to us. And so for our guys to get settled and make a good comeback and take control of the game late was a hell of an effort and a great trip, 4-1 trip. And now we've got to go home and take care of business.
What did you make of Jimmy's game tonight, just kind of the way he took control of the beginning of the second?
Yeah, Jimmy he's a superstar. That's what superstars do. They take over games, and I thought that's what he did tonight. 10 for 10 from the line. It was an incredibly physical game, and so we needed the physicality that he brought to the game, and we obviously had a really good second quarter to get us back in it, and Jimmy kind of led the charge. Obviously, Steph got going as well, but it was a good response from that punch in the mouth.
You've seen so many Steph circus shots. What's the degree of difficulty on that one?
That one was different too. I don't know if I've seen that one. Just the turnaround from 38 feet, whatever it was. And it was a big shot. He gave us momentum going into halftime. Cut it from 8 to 5. It felt very manageable at that point, and you could tell it got him going too.
What do you make just over the 5-game trip as it pertains to Steph, just the combination of production and showmanship?
Yeah, Steph just had an incredible trip. Put on a show in every city. What he does, it's amazing. Just the show that he puts on, the joy that he brings to so many fans who are coming to see him play in all these different cities. Every fan base loves Steph. And there's a reason. He's an incredible performer.
Does it ever get old for you going to all these different arenas, and it's almost like a home game for the Warriors? Tonight they were actively rooting against.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome for us to feel the energy every single night of the season. The season is long, and on some teams there's some nights where the arena's dead. It's hard to get anything going, but our guys bring a lot of fans into opposing buildings and bring a lot of energy, and there's a great history with our team, and obviously we've got one of the greatest performers of all time who's still playing at such a high level, and so it's fun to feel the energy that the crowd responds with.
Coach, you've witnessed a lot of Steph Curry moments throughout his career, your career, of course. He's never dropped 40 points versus the Nets ever until tonight. Do you think he consciously knew that going into it?
Knowing Steph, yes. I think he knows stats. He reads up on stuff. that the last team that he hadn't scored 40 on?
No, there's one more, and ironically, it's the next game you play. Pistons.
Detroit. All right.
You think he's going to go for it again?
You'll have to ask him, but I think he goes for 40 every single night. I think it's just who he is. He's got a killer mentality. He loves putting on a show. He loves to shoot dagger shots. It's what he does. So, I don't know that the mentality ever changes with Steph.
There's Steve Kerr post-game. Yeah, how about that factoid? Steph Curry now with a 40-point performance against the Nets means the only team he has not dropped 40 or more on in his NBA career, the Detroit Pistons. Check on the Warriors' schedule. The Warriors' next game at home against the Detroit Pistons. That is coming up on Saturday. Tip-off is at 5:30, which means I've got coverage for you beginning at 4:30 on Warriors Live on Saturday here on 95.7 The Game. Steve Kerr saying a couple of interesting things there. I'll get to it in a sec, but first, did want to add, we didn't hear it there in that clip, but did want to add what he said about Brandon Podziemski. I've seen a couple of questions about Podziemski, and I see the chat going on YouTube right now. A lot of it is about Podziemski. They needed him down the stretch with those turnovers that allow the Nets to come back in this basketball game in the final minute or so. Podziemski left the game 44 seconds in, immediately grabbed at his lower back and walked right to the locker room. He did not return. Steve Kerr said post-game that it was just his back tightened up on him. Quote, doesn't appear to be serious. And he added that he's day-to-day moving forward. So we will see if Podziemski plays on Monday. But doesn't seem to be too bad, which is good news for the Warriors. I mentioned the big lineup the Warriors went with, which was Jimmy Butler, Moses Moody, Guy Santos, Draymond Green, Quentin Post. I think Podziemski being available makes that lineup almost impossible to go to, which, I don't know. I mean, the Warriors might have found something with that group, but I think as our YouTube chat was pointing out, the Warriors desperately needed Podziemski, another ball handler in there to kind of calm everything down the stretch. When the Warriors built that 10-point lead, Steph hit the night. It was all over. And then the Warriors only win by 2. Not that you ever really felt like they were going to lose, but it got a little too close for comfort for the Warriors down the stretch there. But I think the other thing that Steve Kerr said, and I'll play it back for you one more time here, Jimmy Butler. He called him a superstar. Here is the Warriors head coach on Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy he's a superstar. I mean, that's what superstars do. They take over games, and I thought that's what he did tonight. 10 for 10 from the line. It was an incredibly physical game. We needed the physicality that he brought to the game, and we obviously had really good second quarter to get us back in it, and Jimmy kind of led the charge. Obviously, Steph got going as well, but it was a good response from that punch in the mouth.
Yeah, Jimmy is a superstar, says Steve. That's what superstars do. They take over games. This for my money, and it's going to get lost, honestly, in the 40-point Stephen Curry game, and he was awesome. Although the plus-minus in a single game, it's kind of wonky. The plus-minus suggests that Jimmy Butler had a larger impact on this basketball game than Steph did. I know it's crazy. Steph, in his minutes, 35 and a half minutes, was a minus 16. Jimmy was a plus 17. In a game in which you win by 2, that's pretty crazy. Jimmy Butler in his 35 minutes, 25 points, which tied for the most that he's ever scored as a Warrior, 25 points, a couple of rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, and just 1 turnover, 7 of 13 from the field. He made the only 3 that he took, and it was one of the clutcher shots of the game, and 10 of 10 from the free throw line was Jimmy Butler. He sensed, and I think Jimmy Butler has this sense, he's very good at it. He sensed that the Warriors needed him to score tonight, and he took it upon himself, and he scored. I think tonight might be a little bit of a turning point for Jimmy Butler in his offensive flow. I don't really think, for the most part, he's been in much of a rhythm offensively with the Warriors. His jumper, frankly, has looked pretty bad. He made the only 3 he took tonight. Not a lot else in the mid-range for Jimmy Butler. I can bring up his shot chart here if you give me a second. But I think tonight we might look back on it as a turning point for Jimmy Butler in terms of his offensive effectiveness. I'm looking at his shot chart right now. He made the 1-3 from the left wing. It gave the Warriors their first lead of the game. It was in the third quarter. One other shot from the short corner on the left side, about maybe 18 feet out. It was a miss. Everything else was in the paint. So Jimmy Butler was 1 of 2 outside the paint, and then inside the paint, he was 6 of 11. And you'll take that. You will take that. And a lot of those were right around the rim. He did have a couple of misses. Some of them were on some tip-ins. Not all misses at the rim created equal, but he was effective and efficient in this basketball game. And then he did, of course, his work, a lot of damage from the free throw line, 10 of 10 from the free throw line in this one as well. Warriors needed his scoring, and they got it. They got it. They do not win this game without him scoring 20 or more points in this one. And a game in which you win by 2 points, he's plus 17. Yeah, he had a pretty big imprint on this one. And he really has had a big imprint on all of the games that he's played in, but it was easier to see it tonight because of what he was doing offensively. And it's honestly, like we talk about Steph, sometimes he scores a quiet 25. Like tonight was a loud 40 because he had that crazy half-court buzzer beater to end the first half, and it was like a fadeaway over a double team. And he had some other crazy threes, catch and shoot, barely in his hands, and the crowd oohing and awing every time he puts up a shot. And he got MVP chants on the road in Barclays like 3 separate times. Like that was a loud 40. But there are times where Steph will get you like a quiet 25. This was kind of a quiet 25 from Jimmy Butler. Like kind of ho-hum, like nothing incredibly flashy, right? 10 free throws, a lot around the rim. But at the end of the game, you look down to the box score and you say, wow, he had 25. Like he was the driving force behind this. Warriors do not win this game without him. There is absolutely no doubt. And it's pretty hard to deny the impact that he's had. He has played in 11 games with the Warriors, and the Warriors are 10-1 in those 11. And he is like reason number 1 why the non-Steph minutes have worked of late. Overall, they've worked with Jimmy Butler. It's kind of been not great this road trip. Tonight, though, it was great. The Warriors, when Steph is off the floor, plus 18 tonight. When he was on the floor, minus 16. It makes no sense, but that was the reality tonight. Steph off the floor, the Warriors were plus 18, and that's in the span of like a quarter of basketball. Over 12 minutes of basketball, the Warriors outscored the Nets 37-19 when Steph was off the floor. That is insane offensive efficiency, and it is also insane defensive efficiency, and reason number 1 for that was Jimmy Butler. Now, I don't want to sell anybody else short because there are a number of other Warriors who played really well in this basketball game. I mean, GP2 deserves a shout-out. GP2 was awesome this game. He had himself an amazing road trip. He had 16 points, which behind Steph and Jimmy, third most for the Warriors tonight. He had 9 rebounds. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. I think GP2 has a certain honor coming his way as we get out of here tonight on a Warriors wrap-up, but GP2 was really good. Moses Moody back in double figures with 10 points, made a couple of threes. Quinn Post also deserves a shout-out with 10 points. He made a couple of threes as well. Also, 7 rebounds for Quinn Post. I think we can see the improvement in Quinn Post's game around the rim, both on offense and on defense. I think he's got to be a little more sturdy and strong when he attacks around the rim. He'll get there. I mean, he's a second-round pick, a rookie, picked in the 50s. He'll come around. He will come around. But he had himself a really good game in this one. And you look at like the plus-minus statistic, Quentin Post was a major plus. In his 21 minutes, the Warriors were plus 13. Quentin Post is having an impact on winning right now for the Warriors. And as long as that continues, he is going to continue to get rotation minutes for this Warrior team. And again, he was a part of that big unit. Jimmy Butler, Moses Moody, Guy Santos, Draymond Green, and Quentin Post. That was the 5 that began the fourth quarter on a 9-2 run, leading to Steph's entrance, which pushed it to a 15-4 run. Warriors lose that game without that run, and Quentin Post was a big part of it. He was good in this basketball game as well. You got a lot of help from the others, right? You got the 25 from Jimmy Butler, the 16 from GP2, 10 each from Moses Moody and Quentin Post. And then you get 6 from Kevon Looney, and Pat Spencer scored. Guy Santos, 6 from Guy Santos, 5 from Kevon Looney. Guy Santos with his effort, he was plus 12 in this basketball game. You got a lot of help from the others in this one, and that's a big reason why the Warriors got the win. And with the heavy lifting was Steph and was Jimmy Butler, and that's the way it should be. I mean, these are the 2 superstars on this basketball team. You heard Steve Kerr call Jimmy a superstar. he was a superstar tonight. And, of course, we know Steph Curry, he is a superstar among superstars, and he was awesome in this game once again tonight as well. Okay, let's get to our Crashing the Boards, which is brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. Crashing the Boards tonight, I already mentioned it briefly. GP2, 9 rebounds for GP2 in 20 and a half minutes. He was really good in this game, coming off of missing the game on Tuesday in New York City versus the Knicks because he was dealing with that nasal fracture when LaMelo Ball crashed into his face and broke a bone in his nose, wearing a mask, and it didn't seem to affect him. He was awesome in this game. It goes beyond the rebounds, but for the sake of Crashing the Boards, brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, GP2 was great there with those 9 rebounds, leading the way for the Warriors. Also 16 points, 7 of 12 from the field, had an assist, and plays the good defense as he always does. He was really good in this basketball game, always around the rim on offense and on defense. He had himself a hell of a night tonight. With those 9 rebounds, he claims the honor of Crashing the Boards, brought to you by Chilton Auto Body, the Bay Area leader in collision repair. Okay, let's check one more time on the score out in L.A. Lakers and Knicks doing battle tonight. That game, 5 minutes to go, and the Knicks a 4-point lead. A 4-point lead, the Knicks over the Lakers. 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Looks like it's going to be a good close at Crypto.com Arena. I honestly think the Warriors might be rooting for the Lakers to close that one out. I think there's probably a decent amount of Warrior fans who might disagree. I think I'd rather play the Nuggets than the Lakers if I'm the Warriors in the playoffs. So as a result, I think I want the Lakers to be the 2 seed, the Nuggets to be the 3, if that's the way it plays out. Of course, I think ideally you want maybe Houston or Memphis to be the 3. That seems unlikely, though. But I would guess the Warriors would have a better shot versus the Nuggets than the Lakers. I just think the Nuggets are not very deep, and I don't think Jamal Murray is having himself a great second half of the season, but the others on Denver scare me a little bit more, or a little bit less than the others on the Lakers. And the Lakers have the firepower of 2 legitimate superstars in LeBron and Luka. The Nuggets, I don't think they have anybody on the level of a superstar level like the Lakers do, other than, of course, Nikola Jokic. They got a great one in Nikola, maybe the best player in the NBA, but Nikola could score 40, and the Warriors have been in those games every single time versus the Nuggets. They have at times been run off the floor by the Lakers, although I will say they haven't really played this iteration of the Lakers, but this iteration of the Lakers is still playing really, really good basketball. Anyways, that is the score update in LA. It's 91-87 right now. Knicks over the Lakers, 5 minutes to go. That's the only outstanding score right now. Warriors, as we take one final check on the Western Conference standings, Warriors 3 games behind the Rockets, 3.5 games behind the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are the 4, the Rockets are the 5, the Warriors the 6. They're a half game up on Minnesota, who's the 7. Warriors have a 1.5 game advantage on the Clippers, who are the 8. Warriors 2 games up on the Kings, who are 9, and the Warriors 3 games up on Dallas, who are the 10. Phoenix is even further down. Warriors are up 5.5 games on the Suns. Warriors, for all intents and purposes, do not need to worry about the Mavericks or the Suns anymore. At very worst, I think the Warriors would be the 9 seed, and even that seems like things would have to go terribly, terribly wrong for that to happen. But the Warriors are firmly entrenched in, at the very worst, the 9 seed in the West, which, considering where they were like 4 weeks ago, you'll take it. You will take it. But I think they should be the favorite for the 6, and there's a decent shot they could climb even higher than that to the 5, and maybe even the 4. That, to me, is where they do top out. And up next for the Warriors, they return home. A 7-game homestand begins on Saturday versus the Detroit Pistons. 5:30 is the tip time, which means our coverage begins at 4:30 here on 95.7 The Game. Then Portland on Monday, Sacramento on Thursday, the Knicks the following Saturday, so 9 days from now, Denver on the following Monday, Milwaukee a back-to-back Tuesday, then they close it out with Toronto on Thursday. I know we've been talking a lot about how the Warriors' end-of-season schedule is pretty soft and easy. I think this is a really challenging road trip. Once you get through this road trip, then it's a much easier schedule. But this homestand is challenging. Detroit, one of the hottest teams in basketball. They have lost a couple of games of late, but still playing really good basketball. Portland quietly actually might have a chance to claim the 10 seed if the Mavericks and the Suns can't figure things out. They're having themselves a really excellent second half of the season. The Kings, despite Sabonis going down recently, they've been playing good basketball of late. Then the Knicks after that, we just saw them. They're a quality basketball team. You would expect that Cat is going to play unless something happens. He's playing tonight right now in LA, by the way. So the Warriors just happened to miss him for one game when they were at Madison Square Garden on Tuesday. Then Denver with Jokic. Then Milwaukee with Giannis. That's a really tough homestand. Really tough homestand. If the Warriors can go 5-2 in those 7, I mean, that would be incredible. I don't think 4-3 is the end of the world either, because you really have some quality basketball teams coming into town. 5-2 would be great. Anything greater than 5-2 feels like amazing. Heaven. 5-2 would be awesome. And I don't think Warrior fans should shy away from being very, very happy with a 5-2 homestand, considering who the opponents are coming into town for the Golden State Warriors. Okay, so next game, Saturday versus Detroit, 5:30 tip time, which means our coverage begins at 4:30 here on 95.7 The Game. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks to everyone for calling in and for texting and for all the interaction on our YouTube chat, youtube.com/957 The Game. As always, love the interaction and love interacting with all of you. Thanks as well to Chris O'Connell and my guy Cam Williams behind the glass. My name is Mark Grandy signing off. Make sure you're locked in all day tomorrow here on 95.7 The Game as we react beginning at 6 a.m. with the morning roast to this Warrior win. Until then, this is Mark Grandy signing off. Thanks for listening. We'll talk next time right here on 95.7 The Game.